Okay, I am recording.
Recording.
I am recording.
Great. Well, hey guys.
Hello.
Welcome back
Back-
to another exciting week.
Oh, I was like, back to what? Or back from
Back
what?
to the future.
To us.
Back to us. Ta-da!
Ta-da.
If we were Matchbox 20, we would be back to good if this were the 90s. Was it the
Back
90s?
Would we?
If we were... If we were...
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if we were AC/DC, we'd be back in black.
That's true.
What else could we be back in?
Time, if we were Huey Lewis in the news.
You're still riffing on Back to the Future.
I'm cheap.
That's why we like you on this podcast.
Because I don't cost much, so I can keep coming back.
That's
I see.
right.
I see.
Speaking
little bit
of
of tape below.
podcasts, do you know we're illegal now?
What does that mean? We're legal?
Oh, go on, Aaron. I know what you mean.
There is a...
Have we been breaking the law? I'm very
Apparently,
concerned.
all along, we have been breaking the law. Jim Logan claims to have invented podcasting and is now pressing his patent issue and claiming that anyone who is podcasting is infringing on his copyright, patent, whatever it is you do when you...
Wow. That is actually right before we went on air or live or whatever the hell we say for podcasting. I don't know. That is actually the article that my brother sent to me that I said, hey, my brother just sent me something. That's
well,
amazing.
it just, I think everybody is suddenly aware of it because A, he's just announced it, and B, This American Life has had it on teasers all week for the on the NPR station.
I think I caught the tail end of that then on Saturday when I was driving around.
Yeah.
Or there was some NPR piece and they were talking about patents, and there was just one little story that I heard a snippet of. I think it was sort of the button wrapping up of whatever the program I was listening to was, and it was talking about a man probably our age or maybe a little bit older, and I believe he had some medical training, and his father died of perhaps some kind of heart failure, maybe heart attack or something of that nature. And so it inspired this man to create a device that sort of monitored heart heart readouts remotely. So the idea is that I guess if you had an ailing parent and needed to be on the lookout, for certain events to happen, it would, tie all this information together and yada, yada, yada.
Uh-huh.
However, when he started to go through the patent process, he ran into all of these lawyers sending him letters of people that had written these very vague, all-encompassing patents. Something he said, and he even read one of the letters on air, and something it was so absolutely vague of something like monitoring physiological data at a distance, and it gave some number that essentially encompassed the whole earth, and it was so if he had gone through and actually patented and created this product, which he felt would be innovating and helpful to people that were out there, he would be required to pay the holder of this patent a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
Because the patent would cover the guidelines, and it sounds like the podcasting angle is the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah. He basically, in 1996, describes an audio program and message distribution system in which a host system organizes and records and transmits the program, and then a client subscriber puts it back together somewhere else.
Could you extrapolate that patent to include transporter devices?
Possibly.
We would.
There's
we would
further
extrapolate
things that would play out that don't quite match up with a transporter device, but I guess that opening sentence, butchered and paraphrased the way I just did, would encompass transporter devices. Also in patent news, the tides have turned, and Samsung is suing Apple for infringing on its patents for the iPhone 4 and 4S.
That's way less the tide has turned, and that's way more the tide is just keeps going back and forth because
back and forth.
I imagine it when I heard that story. I swear to God, this is the image that came in my head. There is like a very well-dressed sort of Victorian, maybe Edwardian, dapper young man that is Apple, and then there's sort of this stuffy lady dressed up, and she is Samsung, and they are playing badminton, and so the shuttlecock is going back and forth and back.
Right.
That was literally the image I heard when I heard this story on the news.
So lots of patents working against their actual intent, which is to help and keep invention and innovation going forward.
Yeah.
But if you have the opportunity to stifle innovation with your patent, leap on it, people. It's the American way.
Right.
Well, while you can, because the president is trying to, he says at least, is trying to curtail that. He's trying to change frivolous patent laws. We'll see if anything is successful.
Right.
But here's what's interesting to me about the Samsung part of that is supposedly the argument is that Samsung created the 3G technology that is essentially what you could call a standard. And there's supposed to be a provision in patent law that anything that is a technological standard is supposed to be protected in such a way that it can be licensed at a fair and reasonable price, sometimes for, pennies.
Okay.
To companies so that other companies can build infrastructure and so that something can become a standard so that we can move forward somehow to stop the patent gridlock. Because imagine if there were so many different 3G ways to create and access a 3G network, which I guess there are, and they were all jockeying for position and none of them were standardized in any way like you would a utility, we would not be able to have the cell phone system we have now. Everything would be really fragmented. So what Samsung had developed years ago was a technology for the 3G stuff that could be standardized and was supposed to follow under these sort of fair use guidelines. Contrary to what Samsung has been suing Apple for, or Apple's been or whoever. God, I don't know. Whoever the blankety blank has been suing who. The stuff that Apple was getting cranky about was that Apple's stuff was technology that was not meant to be standardized. It was proprietary design stuff. You know what I mean? Like things that are unique to their product, supposedly, although I don't know how a rectangle is unique, but whatever. But
Didn't
some
you
of
listen to our other podcast? We
Right.
explained thoroughly how a rectangle is
we
unique.
did, and I'm being glib about some of it, but I mean, there are things that are, this is our design, this is what we do, this is a thing that is not standardized like infrastructure, and there's things like Samsung does that I'm sure Samsung's got some patents on some design elements, much like Apple and every other company does. But to hear them get cranky about unfairly licensing their pipes, you know what I mean, or whatever, and it's only affecting models that are not about to be sold for much longer anyway, because you probably got the new product cycle coming out in the summer. And whatever, but it's like saying you're not going to let any more horses out of the barn after they've all left.
Well, yeah, I mean, the podcasting one is sort of interesting because, I mean, it's 1996 and he is basically describing podcasting in his patent. It's actually a really decent patent description, but it seems a bit late in the game to A, try and do anything with it, and B, just impractical to say.
Just having very cursorily glanced the article before we popped up, is he somebody that has filed a lot of patents? And like just sort of is he like one of those people that I guess I was hearing about over the weekend that just files lots of things? Yeah, and just sits on them.
They're called patent trolls. Actually, that's the nickname. I mean, really, no, that's really the nickname, patent troll. Yeah,
right. And the
you
idea,
answer their riddles 3.
And the idea that larger companies that have more money, I guess, for R&D, go out there and troll for more patents. Is that true? Or create more patents, or generalized patents, or
I don't,
patent.
Have any actual information on his other patenting history.
Yeah.
But apparently he did sue Apple over the ability to create a playlist, which is something he invented.
Next, he'll be attacking bullet points.
I was about to say mixtapes. Anyone? I was doing that way back in 1984.
But what I think is really funny is, this story basically really broke, at least to national attention, on This American Life on a podcast episode called When Patents Attack.
We should start seeing if there's a correlation between podcast topics we have done and things that American Life is doing.
And then sue them?
And sue them. And then sue them.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Because you know who has a lot of money? National
Public Radio.
Oh. I was thinking podcasters and National Public Radio.
I mean, in the scale, compared to us, they have a lot of money. They'd be worth suing.
Maybe through the litigation we should barter some sort of not monetary but lunch with Ira Glass. Airtime.
Nice.
All right, you're thinking way better than I am. Oh, speaking
I don't think I could sit and listen to Ira Glass talk earnestly about our lunch for another hour.
No.
La la. No, I told Aaron about this, and Jeff, this is news to you. Speaking of trying to land big fish or medium fish, I don't know what level fish Ira Glass is, but I was when I pulled in to town last Thursday, or should say when I was driving to work last Thursday, I drove by the Kentucky Theater, which is this gorgeous big old movie theater in town, and they show a lot of art films. Wood Songs, which is nationally syndicated through NPR, sort of bluegrass folk music thing. They broadcast out of there, and it's just this beautiful space. Well, they this summer are having a Harry Dean Stanton movie festival to lead up to. There's like a Harry Dean Stanton documentary that's premiering later on in the summer, and I think it's being produced or made by some Kentucky filmmakers. And but anyway, so they're showing this one movie, and I forget the name of it right now because I know I've never seen it. I want to say Cry of the Heart, Heart Cry. I don't know. But anyway, one of the people that was in it was invited to do a talk back after the show. And I saw the name on the marquee as I drove in. And so I thought to myself, oh, my God, I got to see if I can find this person. However, it didn't work out because we had a thing that was going on that night at the Children's Theater that I needed to be at. I was trying to see if maybe I could skip out and catch him after the movie, after the talk back. It didn't happen. And the name of this man, Jeff, was Crispin Glover.
What?
Crispin, I know. And like I've talked about, I was like, if anybody would be down for randomly walking up to and say, hey, you want to talk into my microphone for 30 minutes? He would probably say sure. As well as I really want to go see his one-man sort of slideshow theater pieces. You know, I've talked about that before. And but yeah, so he was in town to talk about, he had a small part in the movie. I think the movie came out 84, 83. And so Crispin Glover was in town, and I completely bungled an opportunity to have him on the podcast. And I apologize to our listeners. I did. And by try, I thought really hard through the process and then was thwarted by my primary job.
Which is really the point of primary jobs.
Yes. To keep us employed until we chase those silly, silly dreams.
So that you can do other stuff. This is the thing you do so you can afford to do the things you want to do.
Yep.
Which is not bad. That's a noble thing.
If you can find a primary job that also isn't a thing you don't want to do, then it works out all right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, I've mentioned that you remind me of Crispin Glover because you do an excellent impression of Marty's dad in Back to the Future.
Hey, you. Oh, I'm not going to do it. Now I feel it would be like really bad. You know what I mean? Like when you want to dance.
Oh, like every impression I do?
Oh,
screw
okay.
you. Do it.
Thank you for making me feel better. Hey, you. Get your damn hands off her. Wasn't that bad? Was that bad?
He's a little drunk. He's a little drunk that time. That's pretty good. That's good.
I'm at the end of a very long day, man.
Yeah.
Who's to say I'm not drunk right now?
Nobody. It's a free country, I suppose.
It is. I patented that. Being drunk at work. Boom.
Adam's Drunk Kitchen, the next podcast.
Drunk Kitchen's already taken. It's already a cast.
I know.
And they're hilarious.
What could Adam be? Oh, I was thinking that we should do a show. Let's go ahead and talk about this.
Okay.
Adam, I was thinking that, number one, I think you need to have your own podcast. And number two, I think it needs to be called Adam Gets Angry at the News.
That is
And
typically...
it's just 10, 15 minutes, however long you want to rant. You pick one story from the news, and you just go off in your uniquely Adam perspective about that story.
Which is really funny because that's generally the way I communicate the news stories to you, like things that I get passionate or irky or irksome, irsome about. And as you describe that, all I can think of is what's his name, Bobby Moynihan on SNL, his drunk uncle character.
Oh yes.
Like that's what I feel I'm building myself into, like the loudmouth uncle who sits in a corner and raves, like
This is Adam. This is when Adam tells a story to me of something he's read in the news. He goes, so I got this article from my brother, and I was reading it or whatever, and I was looking, and I looked into it, and I swear to God, Jeff, this guy does this thing, and then these other people do this completely stupid thing, and I was just like, oh my God, and I would listen to that every week.
And that is exactly the formula how I communicate my news stories to Jeff. And then it builds. Like I'll go, oh,
It
and
does.
this,
And then-
and this, and
It turns out this guy was.
And you know what's really sad, Jeff? I totally understand. That is exactly how my mom tells stories. When she talks about her terrible days, or the guy that cut her off in traffic, or how the world is against her, that is exactly the tone and rhythm that she takes. Now, granted, I would like to believe that I talk about higher-minded things, politics and humanitarian efforts, as opposed to that bitch that works in the cubicle behind me is out to get me. You know what I mean? But it's the exact same cadence and rhythm.
For you, it's okay. The entire world is full of morons and out to get me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just saying, when you're ready, one day that should be a thing.
Yeah. I'm gonna need more reliable equipment at this end. All right, that's what I require first. All right.
All you've got to do is sit there, do what you're doing now, rant into your microphone, and be done with it.
Actually, what I'll do is I'll set up my phone to record, and it'll be a 15-minute segment every week of Adam tries to initialize podcast equipment. Because every week it's different, and every week it gets me angry.
That's true.
There could be a different, Mondays is a rant about technology. Tuesdays is a rant about the news. Wednesday is a rant about personal life. Thursday is...
I like that. Man, I could do a daily thing then if that was it. And you just knew each week was your niche. Yeah, each day of the week was your niche of like, I want to hear him bitch about his crazy family. I want to hear him.
Oh my God.
I want to hear him. I want to hear him bitch about his computer, or how he can't figure out how to access his email on his iPhone, or whatever it is that week.
I just see the technology episode opening with, "Oh my God, I just got this damn thing to record, and I didn't change anything. I didn't change anything.
All I did was plug in the things, just like Jeff showed me. That's all I
Was
did."
the guy that wrapped up 60 Minutes for so long?
I don't remember.
Was it Morley Safer?
No, it was that
No,
guy, and he was cantankerous, and he had the last segment on 60 Minutes, and he would just...
Oh, Andy Rooney?
Andy
Maybe.
Rooney. He always had, he had a rant thing. Yeah.
You know what I don't get?
That was his voice. You got it.
Everyone will do an impression today but me.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Unless you were doing an impression of Cool Jeff, are you? Are you doing an
Yeah.
impression of Cool
Oh,
Jeff?
yeah. Slow jams.
Oh, that was Kool-Aid Man. I heard
Oxy
Kool-Aid Man in there.
105. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool is still in the name. It counts.
All right, good.
All right,
Good.
so
Go
We
ahead.
call him Cult Aid.
now I want to talk about this installation. If you happen to know who the artist is, don't say that yet. I want to look at the art piece itself before we get into the context of the artist, okay?
Okay.
So
okay.
that's my little opening thing. But basically, there was an art installation created in two malls. It was called the Small World Machine, and in India and Pakistan, in the center of the malls. They're very close to each other physically, but they have this like 60-year animosity and very bad relationship between the two countries. And they've basically blocked each other out of all communication, all contact. So the average citizen of either of the two countries has no direct contact with average citizens in the other country. So there's this political cloud hanging over the two that seeps down to the populace because they're held apart, and so they have stereotypes and negative prejudices against each other, but they haven't looked at each other in 60-something years, basically. So the idea of the project was there was this live 3D webcam in the center of each mall, and as you walked up to it, you could see the other environment. So if you're in India, you could see the mall in Pakistan. If you were in Pakistan, you could see it in India. And if two people walked up to it at the same time, you sort of got a natural eye 3D image of them standing on the other side of this pane of glass. Okay? With me so far?
I
Yes.
believe so. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, it was letting the two groups of average citizens make visual contact with each other. But then, when two people were standing in front of it, one on either side, it clicked on basically, and they were invited to participate in this sequence of little video games that they had to play and cooperate together with in the two different environments. So like a shape would appear on the screen and they had to touch fingers and trace the shape on either side of what appeared to be sort of a pane of glass kind of thing. So they were making eye contact, they were making physical contact, they were cooperating to do these little challenges, and it was like trace this object, do a silly dance, high five your partner, get somebody to take a picture of you with your partner. And so it was this set of easily accomplishable but fun, silly, just sort of like ice-breaking things you would do, like at a retreat or whatever, where you were getting to know the other group, yeah? But they were doing it miles away from each other through these small world machines. So, thoughts and opinions of the project, the execution?
I think the project is incredible. It's not dissimilar to I guess really how we in classes how we approach ensemble work. Honestly, in a way, I mean, we don't have the tech or everything, but the idea is to give an activity, give an objective, a goal, or something to accomplish. And I mean, tracing video games is kind of a fun, simple way to do it, and so it puts that person outside of their self, and they don't start thinking about all of the hang-ups or sometimes the fears or things. They're just focused on we need to accomplish this goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Neither
It creates
one can
an
do it
instant
alone.
bond. Yes, yeah. I was rambling, but yeah, that was the point.
That sounds beautiful. I mean, really, that sounds just beautiful. The idea of two separate cultures who maybe aren't so fond of each other doing that. I'm imagining the same installation on like the Gaza Strip.
Sure. I mean, if it works there, why not try it there?
There's a thing. How do I say this and not be taken the wrong way?
Just speak carefully.
Okay.
Slowly.
Let's take it this way. Let's say we were integrating with an alien civilization. Let's extrapolate this. Let's get this out of humans.
Segregation from the alien race. We are not gonna. Nope. I'm sorry. I'm ruining your point. Go ahead.
Let's say this were an alien civilization we were dealing with.
Okay.
Have you ever seen the cat whisperer guy with the weird?
I have told you about the cat whisperer guy.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, you've seen
yes.
it, but yes, we've talked.
Have we
about
talked about him on the show?
Yes. No.
Have we talked
I
about the
don't know.
socialization thing? So whenever he needs two cats who are not going to get along to integrate into a house together, he will start by having essentially putting up a screen door, something like akin to a screen door on the interior of the house. So that the two cats can see each other and they can, get mad at each other, but they can't do anything. And then he'll introduce feeding them in their opposing rooms with the screen door between them and moving the food kind of closer and closer. So eventually they come and they eat together and they associate it differently. And then eventually, of course, he removes the partition. Uh-huh. And I wonder, it just reminded me of that a little bit, the idea of two different sides interacting with each other and then be like, oh, all right, you're not so bad. All right, whatever.
We're not
I guess
so
we could be in a
different,
room
you
together
and
now.
I.
That's right.
And in a lot of
What
ways,
does God need with a starship?
The full installation of course, isn't complete until the people are involved. And yeah, they apparently had this great success. They turned on the machines. People were playing and waving and smiling and communicating across this divide that had just been there arbitrarily for decades. And it really got people on both sides in this very small sampling. It's a tiny little sample group. I mean, it was a mall, but still out of the entire country's population, that's a small sampling. But it, nobody destroyed the installation or rioted over the fact that it existed. Everybody played the game, and everybody had a good time and smiled and danced. Go on.
I've got a question. Did the people that were engaging in the game, were they aware who the people on the other end were?
Yes.
Okay.
When the sort of machine was in its idle mode, it just had a live stream of the other environment, and if you were in
you did
India,
say that.
it said, make a friend with somebody in Pakistan, and if you were on the Pakistan sign, it would say, make a friend with somebody in India. And you would wait till two people were both in frame. But yeah, it was intentionally and prominently displayed that you were specifically talking to somebody in this other country, and which other country.
It's interesting because when you're talking about social constructs and psychology and all of those things, there's so many variables. It's sometimes hard to figure out if they were able to soften and play games with these people that they had been raised to hate. And there may be some reasons behind it, good or imagined. But I wonder if it can begin a questioning, a change, a change of a point of view, or if they automatically reset to, oh, I hate this other person.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, that's sort of a big picture thing that I don't have an answer to. What happened when they walked away from the installation? Yeah, no, that's a deeper question. But I think, some of the interview tidbits seem to be like, I've never seen somebody from Pakistan before kind of responses. It was just that it took them from the shadowy, the other, to this, oh, that's a mom with her two kids, and she looks a little tired today. But look, now she's smiling. That's kind of cool.
And does it, the person that they're playing with in the other side, they get to see that other person's face?
Yeah.
Like the whole time that they're engaged in whatever the activity is?
Yeah, all of the games were sort of mirror-based games, like where you were looking into the eyes of your partner and then doing something in between the two of you.
See, that's incredibly useful, because that's sort of the... that helps so much from we talk about the impersonalization of all of this connectiveness of the internet, and Twitters and Facebook posts and random text back and forth. I like the eye contact. It literally puts a face on it.
And
my God,
and hand
why?
contact. I mean, it was like you were. I mean, the way the cameras were set up, and I don't quite understand how they rigged this, because the cameras were like inside the screens. So like you were literally like fingertip to fingertip touching the same space, looking like you were touching hands through across a window on either side of a window, as opposed to like where, you and I are talking on a webcam and we're all sort of looking at our monitors, and so none of us are really looking at our cameras. So if we were to try and touch fingers, it would just be sort of this arbitrary smudgy dot on the screen. They really had it worked out so that you were making as much physical contact as you could potentially make. And it was, it's a weird holodeck sort of thing that opens up, the next level of what Skype conversations are going to be.
My God, I can't believe was it Bill Gates and Warren Buffett aren't all over this and like funding billions of dollars to have like several of these kiosks like in every city in the world. You know what I mean? Like, what a simple way just to kind of reach out. Yeah. What are you going to say,
Is
Jeff?
Wednesday Adam gets mad at human potential?
Yeah. All right. We'll just declare
Why
that.
aren't we funding this?
All right.
I love the idea of not getting along with someone who's an abstract concept is very different than not getting along with someone you interact with daily.
Yeah.
You know, you can have very different viewpoints and know, like, I do not ideologically agree with this person in any way, but we can play nice and get along together and work together and live in a society together because I see you and I see you're a person versus all the things that we can make up about the people that we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've never been there.
It's
Anyway.
also there's a fun little fact or maybe communication thing that Amy was talking about in some of our teacher training last week, and she was saying in terms of like communicating with another person, how sometimes even if you are upset, angry, frustrated, whatever with this in this example co-teacher that you're working with, put your hand on their shoulder while you are trying to communicate what is frustrating about the relationship or what is not working, because the impulse behind being frustrated and angry is, of course, to yell and shout and get all ranty like I do on the podcast. However, there is, if you are a relatively adjusted human being, that physical contact just by putting hand on the shoulder makes it very difficult to let the rhythm of the conversation like get away from you, like sort of I feel rambly today. Sort of barrel and pick up. You won't be as shouty. You know what I mean? It's just sort of
bring
a
you
runaway
down a
train.
level. It's like, hey, guy,
it
I have
does.
a story about
Yeah.
that.
Do it. Bring it.
Adam's already heard it, I bet. Okay, so I'm teaching where I'm teaching right now at this theater academy, and the theater academy is in what used to be a church. And so it's after hours. The kids are on their way out the door. Most of them have already gone. We were wrapping up our staff meeting, and one of my teaching assistant comes up and says, Jeff, we need help. There is a guy in the building, and we think he's maybe on something. We don't know who he is, and we need to. We're freaking out. I'm like, okay. So I go up the stairs to find him, and he finds me. And I literally get to the top of the stairs, and there he is in the door. It's just he and I in the door frame, and he is drugged up on something. I mean, he's sweating, and because we used to be in a church, he's going, I'm looking to find a priest. I'm trying to find a priest, man. And I'm like, well, this isn't a church. It hasn't been a church for a long time. But let me help you out, maybe. And he's like, man, I got to find a priest. And I'm like, all right. And I put my hand on his shoulder, and I'm gonna be like, all right, sure, will. And as soon as like the tips of my finger touch his shoulder, he goes, don't you touch me. Oh, and I just slammed the door and like boom.
Wow.
And he's on the other side of it, still in the building. And so then I call the police, and I'm like, I've got an intruder. I tell them where we're at, and I'm in a very small town. And they go, I'm sorry, sir, I don't know where that is. And I go, and I give them the address again. And they go, where? And I go, it's part of university property.
Not have computers?
It's here. Right. And they say
the gips that tell you where to go.
And as I'm trying to convince this lady we exist, I watch the guy having left the premises. I know my kids are secure. I'm watching the guy. He's leaving the grounds. He's walking across the street to the restaurant and going out of sight. And I'm just get quiet. And she goes, Sir, do you still need the police?
Oh, my God.
And I go, no, ma'am, I do not need the police. Thank you.
I thought you were going to say you called in on a small town, and they said, I'm sorry about Jeff. We'll take care of him.
Man.
You should have said you were by that restaurant. They would know where that restaurant is.
Yeah, you're right. They would have. They would have known exactly where that was. But now I have a police officer who stays on campus, so now I'm good.
Well, all right.
Wow.
I told him that story. He said, oh, well, I'll be here. I'm like, thank
Gosh.
you.
This is speaking of I don't know.
Don't wander too
strange-
far. I've got to
strange
come back to
people.
this point eventually.
Okay.
But go
Okay.
on.
Oh,
Okay.
I was just gonna make the point of, and this may be sounding like a really callous sort of hard thing to say, but being in Lexington and walking around in the downtown area, it's fairly urban. There are homeless people, but these are the most aggressive homeless people in any city I've ever been in. And I feel even more so than when I used to live here. Like, there was a guy that came up to me and asked if I had any money. And I typically don't ever have cash on me ever. And also kind of have a policy that I don't give out money. But I was like, okay, sure. So I had like maybe $7 in ones. I take them out and give him 2. He was like, well, what are you going to do with those others? And I was like, I'm keeping them. I said, here's $2
For free.
You're welcome, for free. And he started to get real irate with me. And I was like, whatever. And I walked away. And as I was walking away, I saw a cop car pull over and start talking to him. And I think they were detaining him because obviously I would imagine he must have been seen by other police officers, maybe harassing and approaching other people, and probably had been warned. And now this police officer just saw him hassle me, and so he was now being picked up.
That's just a firm negotiator, man. That's all that is.
Yes, but it's not just him. It's not just him. I've had several encounters with several different individuals on the streets just walking around Lexington, and I don't know. It's just baffling.
I would say the difference, though, haven't times gotten harder since you've left and come back?
I guess, but in all seriousness, I remember when I was here before seeing certain cards that they hand out to the homeless people downtown, and all of the shelters that are here in town actually coordinate what days of the week they serve meals on. So like say the Catholic Church covers the meals on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, and then another organization will do just Wednesday, so that they're not trying to provide a meal every night and running out of money. You know what I mean?
But everybody is covered every night.
Right. Everyone is covered every night. They know there are places to sleep every night. It's just, I don't know. It's just surprising because it seems Lexington is a very well organized town in terms of support service.
A great place to be homeless.
Yeah. But it just.
No, but and I really wasn't being flippant. I mean, I was serious.
Sure.
Times got harder between the time you were
Yes.
there and now.
Yes.
And
maybe that's possible. Maybe that's part of the thing. Maybe there are less support services, and I just don't know now. But
right.
Whatever. So that was my heartless moment of the week.
Dun 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 dun.
Whoa! Starting too many shows at once, Adam.
You don't want to flood the market.
We'll just edit
Adam's a
these
heartless
parts out.
bastard.
We'll just edit these parts out, right, and just put them into all the other
Right.
little podcasts we're gonna see.
Done.
That's going to be the whole first season of all of my various spin-offs. We're just going to take my best moments from ArTechník and I don't know. Okay, Aaron, please save me.
All right.
Yeah.
Say something.
So I wanted to come back to this because I really thought the installation was a cool project and an interesting thing, and I asked you to refrain if you happen to know who the artist was. Have either of you seen any of this article before? Do you know
No.
the artist? Do you know anything about it?
Can we try to guess?
Sure.
I mean, is it a name we should know?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Sting.
No.
Spielberg.
Who
No.
does like video installations? Yeah, maybe like a movie maker.
Ali G.
Gallagher. No, not Gallagher.
Not
Weird Al Yankovic.
Nope. One more guess, and then we'll.
Juliette Binoche.
No. I
a
don't
good
know
one.
who that is.
Harry Knowles.
No.
Okay, we give up.
The
We gave him
Coca-Cola
a long time
Corporation.
ago. What?
These were 2 vending machines installed into the India and Pakistani malls.
Oh God.
And at the end of the sequence of activities, each participant was rewarded with a Coke dropping out of the bottom of the vending machine. Does
Look,
it change your
in Coke's
impression of the
defense-
piece?
It does. It does. It completely does. Which is again why I demanded that Bill Gates and Warren Buffett get on it and fund it for freezies, just for goodwill. Because Coca-Cola has an agenda, and yeah, the end.
You're right,
Go,
Adam.
Jeff.
Coca-Cola does have an agenda. It's to buy the world a Coke.
and teach them to sing. in perfect harmony.
But they stated it
I have
very
a 45
early,
of that. It's cool.
They did what, Aaron? I'm sorry.
They stated that their secret agenda was to buy the world of Coke. So they've
Their
That's
secret
true.
agenda. They stated that their secret agenda was.
yes.
I guess it only changes my opinion a little bit. I mean, I have less problem with art and commerce than some. I guess it dirties it a little bit, but I
But
I
why
still
does
think
it?
I don't know. Adam maybe because Adam's so mad about it. I mean,
So I feel I should be mad about it too.
I guess, yeah. That's
I
my
trust
mirror
Adam's
neuron.
rageometer.
He's got pretty good human indignancy, scales that I can calibrate my own. I am a moral vacuum, and so I rely on people like Adam to have a conscience for me.
Oh God, you're relying on me.
Yeah,
I'm your Jiminy
no.
Cricket.
Well, yep. Who's
Well,
the boot that's going to step on you?
It does change my opinion of the piece. And now I totally understand why you were being so careful in your wording when you talked to us the first time. Well
I
done,
still
Aaron.
like it. I still
Oh,
like it.
I like
still
the
feel all
idea.
those warm, fuzzy things I feel about it. I also like Coca-Cola.
Right. I think that's what it is. They're giving them a terrible, terrible product that will rot them from the inside and make them addicted for life. And that's why I hate it.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I feel
So,
sometimes I feel that and we actually got into a discussion about this, me and Amy again. She was talking about some of the interviews that she did for some of the teachers positions that we have since filled and are now working with these teachers in our summer program. And they were saying they have like a battery of sort of questions they want you to answer, and they're pretty good gauges for how you would be in a classroom when they're doing phone interviews, I should say. And so they said they could not believe this year how many of their interviewees on the phone said, well, how would you deal with a student that was maybe not following the rules, or maybe have a hard time, staying with the group activities and maybe acting out and doing that sort of thing. And they said they got so many answers this year that said, well, they wouldn't get their candy at the end of class.
Holy shit! Really?
Right. And yes, and she said she couldn't believe it, and so that put in my brain, and again playing off of the why I have this righteous indignation about the Coke sponsored installation, is that I feel that the activity should be reward enough, even if it's just a simple game. Accomplishing the activity should be enough. I know it isn't.
So
for
wait,
a lot
if
of
you
people that
do
are out
this
there.
thing together, do you get a free Coke?
Yes, each participant gets a free Coke.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the accomplishment of the act should be enough. I understand reasonably why it isn't, but I want it to be enough, and don't want it to be this reward system where we pour sugar down people's throats.
Okay, the Coke is the Coke is a MacGuffin, right? Like you could substitute Coke for anything. Like they could still get a thing,
Sure.
right? And a tangible reward for this thing that they do together, which is, as you're pointing out, if it were not a Coca-Cola, the thing itself is perhaps the greater good, and if it were just some other item. Now, if it were some other item, if it were not Coca-Cola, the money would never be there to fund the damn thing to begin with, and you
That's
wouldn't.
right.
In this current setup, you would not have that. Unless Bill Gates were funding this.
See, that's why I said Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. Hello. I hope you're listening. Berkshire.
What if it was Mexican Cokes or Pepsi throwbacks?
What?
Mexican Coke is made
Cokes.
with
It's the Cokes that are made with real sugar.
Yeah, real sugar.
And they're
We don't
Well,
know.
also-
that Pakistani
also
Coke
known-
is not
Also
See,
known
there
as
you go.
Passover Coke, right?
by some people. Yes.
Yes.
checking in with the Jewish constituency and approval. Okay.
Kosher
good.
Coke. Kosher
Kosher
Coke. Yep. Yeah.
Cokeshire.
Cokeshire.
Cokeshire. I'm from Cokeshire. We speak very fast and have a white upper lip.
Oh,
But we get a lot of shit done.
cool.
Well, Aaron, I wish you hadn't told me the Coke part now.
No, I'm glad you did. It puts it all in perspective.
I like
Nope,
to live
Jeff,
in delusions.
believe as I believe. Believe as I believe.
will not. I will not.
Oh.
You are already my God, apparently.
Oh, speaking of gods,
Are you gonna
can I?
speak to your people for a moment?
I'm going to speak to my people.
For those of you who are just joining us, I have to do a Stan Lee sidebar. For those of you just joining us, several episodes ago, Adam was elevated to deity status, and he is now several people's gods.
We don't know who
so
they
send
are.
all of your
but we
hate
believe
mail.
them to be out there.
Yes. All
Yeah.
hate mail to artechniquepodcast.com, where you can
So-
give Adam a thank you bomb.
So this week, the class that I'm working on, we are working on a 30-minute sort of, we call it performance workshop version of Hamlet. And so as we cast the children in this play and work on things, I'm trying to give them in some of their elective classes sort of a broader base of knowledge about all things Elizabethan and Shakespearean. And so status, of course, is very important in Shakespeare in terms of, the king and the peasant and, status or who's in control in a scene can shift. So I introduced the idea about the great chain of being. And so I had my other teaching artist made a big sort of almost like game board and drew little sort of iconography along the way to give hints for the children. But before we showed them the game board, we just had cards that listed everything from God all the way down to the lowest thing in the great chain of being, which is dirt. Now, we didn't list everything on the Great Chain of Being, but enough to kind of give the categories of like humans, plants, animals, and the God, angel, heavenly things. When I was passing out the cards, and again, I would pass out the cards to the kids and then let them arrange themselves in order, and then we would reveal the poster board, yada, yada, and they'd get it, put them in the right order. If they were wrong, they could correct. The girl that got the God card...
Yes.
She was an atheist.
So she put herself lower than dirt.
No, she was laughing hysterically, and I didn't quite understand because this is like one of the first, again, ensemble team building games that we did. I just kind of threw it at them, explained the basic idea, and said, you need to put yourselves in order.
And when you finish, I'll give you a Coke.
And when I finish, I'll give you a little
One
bump.
of us.
And so it wasn't until later on in the day, and this is kind of a nice moment. I think it was funny. She was an atheist. It was a funny jumping off point for talking about status in Shakespeare. However, that information about her being an atheist didn't come out till later in the day, and it was actually she checked out early. She had a doctor's appointment, and some of the students were talking about why did she have such a big reaction, and one of the other students that knew her said, well, she's an atheist. And then I got to eavesdrop on this very wonderful, these are like high school age students, junior high to high school age, this wonderful, respectful conversation about religious beliefs and how all of them were like, well, even though they didn't all believe the same thing, we have some Jewish students in our class, we have some Christian, we have some that aren't raised in any particular belief structure, and then we've got the girl who is an atheist. But they just had this wonderful conversation about being very, acknowledging that they were different, but respecting the plethora of beliefs that are out there. And so it was funny and it was sweet. It was a nice Monday moment.
Well, that is nice.
Yeah.
I wish I could live in a world where people would all sit, talk together, have different opinions respectfully.
There was a
If only we could manage.
If only.
There was
Man,
this
I want a soda.
fantastically horrible show called Kid Nation, where they stranded 40 kids in this Wild West town, and they had to form a society by themselves, and a TV host came in once a week, or like every 3 days, to talk with them. And I assumed there was more adult supervision than was shown on camera, but not much. And anyway, it was fantastic and horrible, and it didn't even finish a whole season because it was horrible, but it was fantastic. And there was one episode where they had to decide if, how, and what religion they were going to bring into the community. And it was sort of a similar, interesting observational experiment where it was like watching kids sort of go, oh, well, that's not what I learned, and just sort of talking, and they decided that they weren't going to institute weekly church that everybody had to go to, but that if you wanted to, they were going to do a fireside service and let everybody tell about their own personal beliefs, and it was optional, and otherwise you could keep hanging out in the saloon.
So like Western kid Unitarians.
Yeah.
Nice. Speaking of wonderful and terrible, I did a semi-wonderful tease last week, and it would be terrible if I didn't, real quick, before we have to sign off, talk about John Galantini. So let me do a really hard segue and talk about John Galantini. John Galantini created a recreation of the London subway, the tube map, without using images. He did it all from CSS code, CSS3 specifically. And I'll throw a link up to it in the show notes. But it's really cool because you look at it and it's all colors and lines. And the first time I saw it, I said, "How did you do this without any images?" And it turns out this is not his. I'll get to how he did it in a minute, but it's not his first rodeo with this. He also created a mostly imageless CSS TARDIS. So he created, it looks like a vector graphic essentially of the TARDIS, and there's just like one or two images in that, a door handle and a seal, and a door lock. But
are there more vectors on the inside than on the outside?
Very funny. Actually, that's a good joke. No, I don't know, but what I did learn is, well, kind of actually. Because it is bigger on the inside, because it's not made of images, it's made of CSS. It's all made of code. So it is bigger on the inside.
Take that.
So yes, take that. I learned that with CSS, which is, the quick version is cascading style sheets. CSS is a thing where you can take, separate web content, such as article text and images, from web design. The two get to be separate now, and they have been for quite a few years, so that you can quickly change the look of your website and quickly strip down and extract content, which is, I think, a lot of the basis for feed readers and mobile reader feature apps like Safari Reader or iReader if you're on Chrome. Anyway, who cares? The point is, with CSS3, there are not just things like color, font size, font weight, and stuff like that in there. There are shapes that you can draw. So you can say, I want a right triangle. I want a 6-pointed star. I want an infinity loop. I want a weird share arrow. You know those little like droopy, curvy arrows with a share button on it? Those kinds of things.
Share is in like share on Facebook, not share like, whoa.
Oh, I'm not going to do my share impression. That was bait. I knew it. Yeah. So there's apparently all these things that you can do where you can draw these shapes at different orientations, different sizes, whatever, just by putting in this code. And they've got tags, hashtag curved arrow, and you position and all that kind of stuff. Trapezoids, stars, hexagons, blah, 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 all kinds of weird shapes. And I'm just interested in... this has clearly got to be just baby steps and just the beginning, and when we'll be able to, in CSS, add on custom shapes, or if CSS will open up to let you define, whatever kind of shapes that you want to make that don't already natively exist in the language.
Right, and then we'll have CSS Miami and CSS New York.
Waka 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 waka. Take us out, Adam. Anyway, that was it.
You're going to be emailing him and seeing if he wants to be on the show, yeah?
I think that would be a great idea.
Do it.
Sounds like a plan.
Send him a CSS email that says, we would like you to be on the show.
No, I'll send him a plain email, and then I'll wrap it in some CSS so that it looks pretty.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But then how will he ever... Wait.
What?
But then won't the package get lost in the CSS if it is larger inside than outside? Like, how will he find it once he unwraps it?
Are we talking about sex?
We don't even know.
Okay. I don't know. We'll talk after we're off air.
Speaking of off air, I believe it's time for sign-offs. I am Jeff, and I always like to wrap my CSS before I tap onto the internet.
Oh, yuck.
I'm Aaron, and I would work with my worst enemy for a Coke Zero.
I am Adam Montag, and I would like to thank the proud sponsor of Arsenic and Old Lace at the Calhoun Little Theater, Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
I don't know what
sorry.
just happened. I managed to not go blue almost the entire show.
Almost.
Until my sign off.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh well. Oh well.
Goodbye,
I'm
Internet.
so frazzled.
All right. Goodbye, internet.
I love
Everybody
you
stop
all.
recording. All right.
Did you?
Goodbye, internet.
I love you.
3. I'm stopping now.